There's something about an Australian summer that stays with you forever. The heat. The smell. The way time seemed to slow down completely. If you lived through summer in 1960s Australia, you know what real heat felt like. Not air-conditioned heat. Not climate-controlled heat. Real, relentless, inescapable heat that wrapped around you like a blanket you couldn't throw off. Today we are looking back at how you actually survived the heat during Australian summers in the 1960s. The tricks, the rituals, the small victories that got you through when the temperature hit 40 degrees. This sounds absolutely ridiculous, but every kid did it at some point during a brutal heat wave. You'd be lying in bed at 10 o'clock at night, sweating through your sheets, absolutely desperate for relief. So you'd sneak into the kitchen, open the freezer door, and just stick your head inside. That blast of cold air felt like stepping into another dimension, like you'd discovered a portal to Antarctica. You'd stand there with your head in the freezer, eyes closed, breathing in that cold air until your face went numb. Mum would catch you eventually. Close that door. You're letting all the cold out. But she'd caught Dad doing the same thing an hour earlier, so she couldn't complain. It was desperate, it was ridiculous, but when it's 38 degrees at midnight, you'll try anything. Mum had this trick she swore by, and eventually every family in the street was doing it. About an hour before bedtime, she'd take your pillowcase off, fold it up, and stick it in the fridge. Not the freezer where it would get wet, just the fridge where it would get beautifully cool. When bedtime came, she'd put the cold pillowcase back on your pillow and you'd lie down on it. That coolness against your face and neck was absolutely divine, like lying on a cloud made of ice cream. It would only stay cold for about 10 minutes before your body heat warmed it up, but those 10 minutes were enough to help you fall asleep. The really desperate kids would keep 2 pillowcases rotating all night, one on the pillow and one in the fridge. It seems silly now, but back then it was genuine innovation, a small victory against summer heat. When the house became too hot to sleep in, you simply moved outside, and this was completely normal. Dad would start dragging mattresses out to the back veranda around 9 o'clock, sometimes earlier if it was brutal. The whole family would sleep outside together under the stars, and nobody in the neighborhood thought this was strange. You'd look down the street and see mattresses on verandas everywhere, families sprawled out trying to catch any breeze. You'd lie there looking up at the sky, watching the stars, listening to possums scurrying across tin roofs. If you were lucky, a breeze would come through after midnight, when the earth finally started releasing the heat. Mosquitoes would attack relentlessly and you'd wake up covered in bites, but it was still better than suffocating inside. Eventually you'd drift off from exhaustion and wake up with dew on your blanket as the sun started rising again. Mum had another trick that sounds strange but actually works surprisingly well. She'd take your singlet, run it under the cold tap until it was soaked, then wring it out just enough. Then you'd put it on wet and go about your day. That damp fabric against your skin created evaporative cooling, and for a while you'd feel genuinely cool. You'd walk around leaving a trail of water drops, but nobody cared because they were doing the same thing. The singlet would dry out within an hour, but by then you'd just wet it again. Some days you'd wet that same singlet 5 or 6 times, turning the cold tap into your personal air conditioning. It was simple, it was free, and it provided real relief even if it only lasted a short time. This was old bush wisdom from the outback that suburban families adopted during heat waves. You'd get hessian bags, those rough burlap sacks that potatoes came in, and soak them in water. Then you'd hang them over your windows on the sunny side of the house, the side that copped the afternoon sun worst. The wet hessian would block the sun's heat, and as the water evaporated it would cool the air passing through. It was crude evaporative cooling, the same principle fancy systems use today, but done with bags that cost nothing. The bags would dry out quickly, so someone had to go around re-wetting them every few hours. Your house would smell faintly of damp hessian, which wasn't pleasant, but it was better than roasting alive. It didn't make the house cool, but it might drop the temperature a few degrees, and every degree counted. When things got truly desperate, usually mid-afternoon when the heat peaked, you'd resort to the bathtub. You'd run a cold bath, not deep because of water restrictions, maybe 4 or 5 inches. Then you'd get in fully clothed, shorts and shirt and all, and just sit there soaking. The cold water would seep through your clothes and cool your whole body down, and for those minutes you'd feel human again. Eventually Mum would bang on the door because others needed their turn, and you'd have to get out. You'd wring out your clothes right there in the tub, then walk around dripping wet, leaving puddles everywhere. Nobody told you to change because they knew those wet clothes would keep you cool for the next hour. By the time your clothes dried out, it would be time to do it all over again. Shop-bought ice blocks cost money, and when you wanted 10 a day during a heat wave, that added up fast. So Mum would make ice blocks at home using whatever she had. She'd mix up cordial, usually orange or lemon, and pour it into old ice cream containers or yogurt pots. She'd stick a paddle pop stick in each one, then put them in the freezer overnight. Next day you'd have homemade ice blocks, not as fancy as Sunny Boys, but they did the job. Sometimes she'd use fruit juice if there was any, or just cordial frozen into ice cube trays. You'd suck on those ice cubes all afternoon, one after another, trying to stay cool from the inside out. The homemade ones never tasted as good as bought ones, but when you were desperate you didn't care. Making your own meant you could have as many as you wanted without Mum worrying about cost. If your family owned a pedestal fan, it was treated like the most valuable possession in the house. One fan for the whole family, sitting in the hallway where it could reach multiple rooms. It was a big metal thing that sounded like a helicopter, with 3 speeds that were loud, louder, and deafening. Everyone would find excuses to stand in front of it for a few seconds of moving air. Kids would fight over who got to sleep closest to it at night. Arguments Mum would settle with threats. The fan didn't actually cool anything, just move hot air around, but that moving air felt like heaven. You'd talk into it to hear your voice wobble, one of the few entertainments during boring hot afternoons. That fan ran continuously from December to March, never turned off, just rotating like a mechanical savior. If your suburb had a public pool, that's where you lived during summer, no question. Every afternoon after the worst heat hit, you'd grab your towel and bathers and head straight there. The pool was your refuge, the only place where you could feel genuinely cool. You'd pay your sixpence, jump in, and stay for hours until your fingers wrinkled and your lips turned blue. The water was warm from all the bodies, but it was still water, still better than anywhere else. You'd do bomb dives, play Marco Polo, practice handstands, anything to stay in as long as possible. The concrete around the pool was scorching, and you'd hop from foot to foot yelling hot, hot, hot. Walking home afterwards, you'd still have chlorine in your hair and water in your ears. By the time you got home you'd be hot again, but those hours in the pool had been worth it. The absolute best part of surviving summer was when nature finally provided relief. You'd see it building all afternoon, those dark clouds gathering on the horizon, and everyone would watch the sky. The air would get completely still and heavy, so thick you could taste it, and you'd know it was coming. Then the wind would pick up and you'd feel that first cool breeze, like a gift from heaven. Everyone would run outside because nobody wanted to miss this. This was the event of the day. The first drops would fall, then it would open up into an absolute deluge. You'd stand right in it with your arms out and face up, letting the rain drench you completely. The temperature would drop dramatically, 10 degrees, 15 degrees, sometimes more in just minutes. Water would run down gutters and rivers and kids would race stick boats down these temporary streams. The storm would last maybe 20 minutes, then pass as quickly as it came. But for those precious minutes you'd experience pure bliss, genuine relief, proof that summer wouldn't last forever. And you'd sleep better that night knowing the earth had been satisfied, at least for one day. That's how you survived Australian summers in the 1960s, with ingenuity and desperation and determination. No air conditioning, no instant solutions, just human creativity and willingness to try anything for relief. We've gained so much since then with climate control and modern comforts, but we've lost something too. That shared experience of surviving together, of everyone being in the same boat, trying the same desperate tricks. You learned resilience and resourcefulness, how to make do with what you had, how to find small victories in uncomfortable situations. Those summers shaped who you became, taught you that comfort isn't everything, that you're tougher than you think.